Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of the internet, good morning to you. Happy Monday. I've got news for you. If you've been keeping track, if you've been paying attention at home, if you've been following along on this journey, you have found the same thing that I have. It's episode 300. 300 times have I had the opportunity, the privilege, and the honor to come before you and give you your daily checkup from the neck up. Coach Kyle Evans here, hanging out with you today, as always. Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Maps Coach, Bold Coach, all the things. And do we have a topic this week? Literally, one of my favorite topics of all time, one of my absolute favorite things to talk about, probably because it's near and dear to my heart, probably because it's something that I still wrestle with, that I'm still on the journey of. And I think it's the true pandemic of society today. It's grit and grace. It's understanding the duality of both. It's understanding the dichotomy of them. It's understanding when to give grit, when to give grace, and how to make that dance happen. Guys, we're going to be talking about that all week on our 300th episode week, and I cannot wait to dive in. So let's understand where this is going today. Because it's a brand new week, because this topic is so important, I want to make sure that I have your eyeballs, your ears, and your brain tuned in, whether you are sitting at your desk or driving in your car or getting ready. The grit and grace battle. It's the inner battle. It might be the most important thing, in my opinion, that you ever struggle with, that you ever learn to master, that you ever get good at, because it's not against the market. It's not against competitors. It's not against the world. It's not even against circumstances. It's against yourself. That battle of grit and grace, there's only one adversary, and it's you. Now, if you're not familiar with these topics, I'm going to break it down for you. When I say grit, what I mean is pressure, work ethic, discipline, suffering for growth's sake, not just suffering to suffer. That's the difference, right? Pressure, work ethic, discipline, suffering for growth's sake. When I say grace, guys, I mean forgiveness. I mean compassion. I mean rest, recharging, second chances. Heck, dude, maybe 10th chances. You see, the trouble with this is most people, they live lopsided. They either give themselves too much grace and they excuse their life into mediocrity, or they give themselves too much grit and they drive themselves into exhaustion, burnout, bitterness. The mastery of life is knowing when to apply which one. This week, I'm going to break down grit and grace and how to use them, guys, to fuel your goals, to fuel your relationships. And most importantly, I don't think we talk about this enough in today's society, to fuel your spirit, your heart, your soul, the you inside of it all. How do we use these two super powerful foundational principles to fuel ourselves? You see, the voice of grit and the voice of grace, they sound a little different. Or Grace's voice usually sounds like this. Hey, Bobo, you deserve a break. It's okay to let this one slide. You earned it. Grit sounds like David Goggins. If you don't know who that is, go give him a Google. Yelling in your ear, no excuses. Do it anyway. Pain is just weakness leaving the body. They're drastically different, and they're so wonderful if we use them balanced. Tony Robbins talks about raising your standards, how change starts when you stop negotiating with your excuses. You see, that's more of that grit. David Goggins talks about the 40% rule. And I love this one. I'm working on it. But it's when your mind says you're done, when your mind says you're done, man. Guys, you're only at 40%. We need to understand that more often than not, grace should be the reward for endurance, not the excuse for quitting. The reward for endurance, the reward for doing the thing, not the excuse for giving up. The reason why I want you to lean into this is because habits wire faster when consistency is held. And every time you grace yourself out of a habit, you got to reset the momentum. But again, too much grit leads to burnout. We've got to give ourselves grace when it's earned, and we got to give ourselves grit when it's not. I think a lot of this goes down to the identity, who you believe you are. A lot of times we find that we have these big desires to do things and we're just not doing them. That's because identity precedes functionality. Identity precedes functionality. Who you believe you are, the grace you feel you deserve, the grit you feel you need to do, that's at the base layer of the function that comes next. Gary Keller says it as living an inside to an outside life. We think and then we act. Are we thinking about the right stuff? Because if not, we end up living a lopsided life, and that's not good for anyone. Too much grace, we're lazy. And let me tell you, boys and girls, I'm not talking to you from an ivory tower like I'm some Navy SEAL. I love being lazy. Too much grace, it's where excuses live. Too much grace when it's not earned, it leads to broken promises. And more often than not, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of the internet, you have a lower self confidence, you have a lower self identity, internal representation of who you are because you're breaking too many promises to yourself. Too much grace leads to no growth. This is the danger of doing it in the extreme. Too much grit, burnout, resentment. And you have to be careful when you get into resentment. In my opinion, resignation is one of the most dangerous human emotions that we have because it is so hard to get out of it. Too much burnout leads to anxiety. Too much grit, that's when those Sunday scaries start kicking in. Too much grit, you will physically break down. That's the nuance of this thing. It's not easy. Hear me. This is not easy. This is going to be a lifelong battle of understanding which one is needed, which one you deserve, which one you earned. Because I think, and this is where it gets convoluted, when we talk about grace, I think a lot of times we're giving ourselves cheap grace. Cheap grace. That's forgiveness without transformation. Let me say that again. I think grace is misused, and a lot of times people are actually giving themselves cheap grace. That's forgiveness without transformation. That's saying, I'm sorry, and not doing the things to fix it. Grit gets misused in legalism. Working without joy, working without rest, working into burnout, working just for working's sake, working because someone else is going harder. Yeah, man, that's cool. And I understand that it's a tool that you can use and you should use, but too much of it and you break. Both of these can be an absolute gift to you when used properly. But you got to know when to use the saw and when to use the hammer. Entrepreneurs who treat themselves too much versus the ones who hustle 24/7 until their family is destroyed. The mastery of life lies somewhere in the middle. Because if you always give yourself grace, you'll never grow. And if you always demand grit, listen to me, ladies and gentlemen, you'll never heal. You'll never heal. There's so many times that we let ourselves off the hook too much. That is that lack of grit. We give ourselves a way out as soon as it gets hard, as soon as it gets tough, as soon as we have to do a gut check, look ourselves in the mirror, we quit. We don't give ourselves enough grit. And I truly believe that a lot of times we're not giving ourselves enough grace either. Not the cheap grace, ladies and gentlemen, not the forgiveness without transformation. I'm talking about actual grace that you are needed, saying, hey, because you have a beat in your heart and breath in your lungs and a pulse in your body today, it means that you've gotten through the worst days of your life. It means that you're still here, that you still have a chance. Real grace is understanding the worth that you have as a human being. Real grace is understanding that you bring something to this world. Real grace is understanding that you do have a skill set, you do have value, and people desire to understand and know you. We don't give ourselves enough of that, myself included. Why does this battle matter? How do we bring this to practical terms? Let's think about grit and grace as it pertains to our goals. Guys, enough grit, using grit, it helps you build that consistency. Giving yourself grace when it's earned prevents burnout. In the pursuit of your goals, in the pursuit of your commitments, whatever they are, whatever's important to you, whether it's making a bajillion dollars, being the fittest person on earth, being a great spouse, being a great husband, being a great dad or mom, being a great friend, whatever your goals are, grit is going to help you build that consistency. I'm not good at a lot of things, but boy, oh boy, can I show up. This is episode 300. I'll show up, but I haven't shown up every single day because I need grace sometimes. What are your goals? And are you applying the right tool for the right moment? You see, sometimes I think we let our mediocre success hold us back from our true greatness because we're not giving ourselves enough grit. I know a lot of this is about the extremes of grit and grace, both on the polarizing ends of the story. But one on things I want you to know is I don't know, that's bad language. I know for a fact the majority of us are not giving ourselves enough of either one. So we're floating in this unfulfilled, unsanctimonious purgatory. That's where the mindset comes in. Grit strengthens your identity, that consistency, that not negotiating with yourself, that choice every day of I'm going to show up and be counted, and there is more in my tank. We need that for our mindset. And we need grace because, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it heals shame. And I think more often than not, if we're honest with ourselves, a lot of us are wearing the cloak of shame that we don't actually deserve. When we're bringing grit versus grace into relationships, guys, grit means accountability. Grit is saying, hey, I got you. Hey, I'm going to do what I say. Hey, I'm going to keep my promises. Hey, I'm here to work and not give up. I'm not walking away. I got you. I got your back kind of love. Grace is the forgiveness. Are you perfect? No. Give yourself grace for that. Is your partner perfect? Your spouse, your friend, your kids, your parents? No. Give themselves give them grace for that. As a leader, if you only give grace to your people, they will never grow. They will never grow. They will stay put. And part of that will be your fault for not leading them correctly. If you only give your people grace, they will never grow. And if you only give them grit, they'll eventually quit. It's the balance, it's the yin and yang. It's finding which one is needed for the moment and being a master of both of them. In your spiritual life, God is both just and merciful. You can find discipline, you can find forgiveness. The model is both, not either or. It's both. And too often in this life, we're only using one tool when we need both of them. Your best self is found in the rhythm between grit and grace, not in the extremes of either one. It's in the rhythm, it's in the dance. If this is resonating with you, you are in the right spot this week because we're going to dive into each one of these principles, take them apart, look at them, and figure out how we can apply them. But for today, some tools for you to think about. What about a check-in question? Before every decision, or before you don't follow through on a commitment that you know you should be doing, what about asking yourself this question? Am I excusing myself with grace, or am I stretching correctly with grit? Am I excusing myself with grace, or am I stretching correctly with grit? Simple check-in question. Tool number 2, the rule of earned grace. Not cheap grace, earned grace. Don't give yourself grace until you've first given grit. Earn the grace. Don't give yourself grace until you've first given grit. For example, let's say you're going for a health goal. You can have a cheat meal every now and then. I didn't say a cheat day or a cheat week. Give yourself grace. Is your body tired? Fine, rest. That's okay. But you got to give yourself the grit before you can earn the grace. Tool number 3, the grit trigger. Identify one area where you've been too easy on yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, I know you know where that area is. You do. Almost everyone I talk to knows, whether they want to admit it out loud or not. They know the area that they've been too easy on themselves. They know the area that they should have used grit and they're giving themselves too much cheap grace. Commit to a grit action today. That's your tool. Commit to a grit action today. Is it an extra call? It is an extra mile? Is it getting your steps in? Is it an uncomfortable conversation that you know you need to have, business or personal? What is the grit trigger today? And finally, number 4, the grace trigger. You probably knew it was coming. Identify one area where you've been too hard on yourself. What is one area that you honestly have been too hard on yourself, and commit to grace in that? Whether it's rest, whether it's forgiveness, letting something go. It might even just be resetting without shame. It might also be understanding that your timeline is your own and being okay with where you're at and giving yourself grace to know that you are running your race and no one else's. Grace without grit is weakness. Grit without grace is misery. Together, though, together they are mastery. The battle all along is inside you. And the foundational thing I want you to take away from today and all week is grit and grace aren't enemies, they're actually teammates. The key, the master key is discernment. Discernment, knowing when to apply which. Today, before you lay your head down on your pillow, I want you to think about, meditate on, reflect, journal, whatever you're into. Two things. Where did I give grit when I wanted to give grace? Where did I give grit when I wanted to give grace? And where did I allow grace to heal me instead of beating myself down? Where did I allow grace to heal me instead of beating myself down? That's how you start mastering the rhythm. Self awareness is the key to self mastery. Understanding that grit and grace aren't enemies, they're teammates, is the key to self mastery. Remember, grace is the reward for endurance, not the excuse for quitting. The reward, not the excuse. If you always give yourself grace, you'll never grow. And if you always demand grit, you will never heal. At its foundational layer, grit is proof that you believe your future is worth fighting for. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for tuning in 300 times to the Grow Show. I will be with you bright and early tomorrow morning. Coach Kyle Evans. See you later.